Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you, and today I have a great topic for you. We are going to talk about 5 big benefits with Proviron. But before we get into that, just a big shout out and thank you to everybody supporting the channel. You guys are amazing. We are growing rapidly. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, click like, click share, comment, whatever you can do. It totally helps the channel to grow, and it's just going to continue to allow me to produce more and more content. Also, today's episode is sponsored by letsgetchecked.com. I have a video up that goes in detail about the sponsorship. Letsgetchecked.com does at-home blood testing. It's perfect. Many of us out there don't have insurance, don't want to go to our doctors, whatever the case may be. You can get many different types of tests done at home. It's very easy. It's very simple. Check them out. Letsgetchecked.com. Use the code Gemelli30 to get 30% off your entire order. Now, let's get to the topic at hand and let us begin to talk about the 5 major benefits of Proviron. Now, I love Proviron. I've never made that a secret. It's one of the most unique anabolic steroids out there. Basically, it's unique because it has a really nice, distinct set of traits that not really anything else has. I'm going to get into that with you here now, and that's probably one of the reasons why we don't find it mentioned enough, because there's nothing so drastic about it, but there's a lot of things that are misunderstood or misinterpreted that people don't understand. Most people don't want to bother even running Proviron because there's so many supposed better and stronger compounds out there. But understand, Proviron has a very unique set of benefits, which I'm going to get into right now. And when you're able to be an enhancer to the level Proviron is, there's a reason why I personally love it so much. One other reason why people do steer away from it is it's a little bit pricier and it's often faked, unfortunately. And that's because it's harder to find, harder to produce. The raws are more expensive, and that's just the way it is. It has remained one of many people's favorite compounds over the years, the people that truly understand it, and the people that do get in-depth and use it more and more and see what it truly does. Now, 5 reasons, and then I'm going to get into each reason more in detail. 1, Proviron just makes us feel great, and it keeps our libido high. Number 2, it's an anabolic steroid enhancer to a very high extent. Number 3, it's going to promote lipolysis and also muscle hardening. Now, lipolysis is fat loss, essentially. It has an anti-estrogenic effect, number 4. Number 5, it has a very favorable side effect profile. It's got very little side effects. We'll get into that here shortly. Now, let's talk about number 1. Number 1 was Proviron is going to make us feel great, and it's going to keep our libido up. And for me personally, that's always been one of the big draws to Proviron is the way it makes you feel. Some anabolic compounds are notorious for causing a libido crash. We know this, all right? And if that wasn't enough, they can affect you emotionally. We also know this, some in a very bad way. Example, Tren or Halo. This definitely is going to dampen the benefits of what you get from a cycle, and it's going to make the experience not so great. Now, DECA, for example, it's one of the favorite mass builders out there, rightfully so, and it works nice and slow, creates a great full look that we all love. But even at low doses, it can cause you problems. We all have heard of the infamous DECA dick. You do not want these things going on, right? And DECA's known for that. It doesn't even feel like you are interested in anything at certain points. Tren, all right? It can make your mood go insane. Emotionally, you can be up, down, mad, sad, just out of nowhere. It can also make you very aggressive to where you're picking fights with people over trivial and just stupid things. You can be overly paranoid. I mean, we know the side effects here, and we can counter a lot of these, all right? You either, for DECA, for example, you maybe want to go higher DECA and lower test with some finasteride. I hate that. I'm firmly against that. Or we can run Proviron along with it. Proviron is by far the safest and most effective option of what I listed here. I mean, finasteride. Think about post-finasteride syndrome and all the negatives there, possibly never curing it. It makes you feel like shit. You can get your peak libido with only 50 milligrams a day of Proviron. and it's going to make you feel great, while a lot of these cycles you can feel bad, and that defeats the purpose of even running these cycles. Your mood is going to be elevated constantly. You're going to feel like you're on at all times. It's just going to affect the way that you feel on cycle in a very, very positive way, and it's going to enhance it to a much higher effect. The libido boost alone is enough reason for you to consider running it with your stacks, and that's just a fraction of what it does. This is another benefit for me that I find to be just, extremely, extremely desirable, and that is that it's an anabolic steroid enhancer. A common gripe that you hear from people that use Proviron is that it's not great mass builder and they don't see much right on the surface from it, which you're not. But then why would you consider running it, considering the costs and the chance of getting fakes? And so why run it? Well, it's not a great mass builder, but here's what it does, and here's the effect it has on mass, is that it enhances the mass building capabilities of the compounds that you're using with it. Listen, almost every anabolic steroid is going to bind with your SHBG, and that's going to increase the amount of free testosterone available in your blood, okay? But only Proviron does it better than all the other compounds. It has an extremely strong affinity to bind to SHBG. So what does this all mean? It means that even if you pair it with a TRT dose of test, it's going to increase the amount of bioavailable muscle-building testosterone in your blood. So imagine the kind of results that you can achieve if you run it with multiple compounds like Test, Tren, Deca. The results of a cycle are going to be terrific either way, but it's going to get amplified to a much higher level when you add Proviron to the mix. And that, to me, is a massive, massive deal. You know how, and most of you that know me or follow me, you'll hear me talk about how GW 501-516 cardarine is the ultimate performance enhancer, which I firmly, truly, with all of my being, believe that it is. However, if you're looking at the steroid world, Proviron is going to be the enhancer for your enhancers. So it is going to take your enhancers that you're using, Test, Tren, Deca, whatever it is, and it's going to enhance them even further. And call me crazy, but if you're having little side effects to none and you're getting an enhancement for your enhancements plus a slew of other benefits, I don't know. It's pretty desirable to me. Now, number 3, it's going to promote lipolysis, and it's also going to harden your muscles. This is something like, for guys like me, this is the types of things that we love. It's a DHT derivative with a very strong binding affinity to your androgen receptors. It has all the classic possible traits of a DHT-derived compound. It hardens your muscles, which can be extremely beneficial, especially if you're running a stack with predominantly wet compounds like a Test, Deca, and D-ball cycle, a very wet, bulking cycle. Even at a lower doses, 50, 75 milligrams Proviron can provide very nice muscle hardening. It's not going to be comparable to like a Masteron or a Winstrol. It's not like an extreme no sub-Q water dry look. Okay, it's not to that level, but it definitely gives you a nice aesthetic finish, somewhat like, what fitness models are aiming for. Now, it's just a perfect complement to the results from wet compounds, because we know those are going to make you look puffy, bloated, swollen. Now, one of the things that's going to separate it from something like Masteron, for example, is that you don't have to be at a lower body fat for it to shine more. I've covered the Masteron 50% body fat rule and all of that. But even if you are at 15% body fat, you're still going to get some nice muscle hardening effects and see them more than you would from Masteron, where you need to be a little bit leaner to see those effects. Another classic DHT trait is that it possesses, the ability to affect lipolysis directly. Even if you're on a caloric surplus, your waistline's probably going to remain tight when you use Proviron, as long as it's cleaner calories. And it's going to help with a little bit of vascularity too, and it's going to amplify your aesthetics even further. Now, number 4, let's talk about the anti-estrogenic effect. Proviron is one of the only few compounds that also binds, readily to aromatase enzymes, and it's going to prevent them from the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, or at least help slow it down. And it kind of manifests itself in a multiple ways here, okay? So for starters, you're not going to probably need an extremely high dose of an aromatase inhibitor to prevent estrogen spikes if you're using Proviron, even if you're running compounds that aromatize, at a higher rate. So let's say you're running a low dose test and DECA cycle, Proviron may be enough for some of you. I am always hesitant to take a DHT compound and say, hey, you can just totally replace an aromatase inhibitor with this. But in fairness, there are people out there that for whatever the reason, they just do not get any sort of estrogen conversion, and it can be detrimental to those people. They can crash their estrogen very easily. So there are anomalies and exceptions to the rule. Somebody like me who is extremely estrogen prone, if I run Proviron, it might allow me to run a little bit less of an AI, but I'm still hesitant. But then there's people that are just kind of baseline, and it'll definitely lessen your need for a higher dose of an aromatase inhibitor. It could eliminate it, but chances are slim that will happen. But I'm not going to say that's impossible, because it's certainly not. All right? It's just not as likely or as common. But I'm always going to be fair. Even if there's like 10 people out of a million, well, I've got to cover that and say it's possible, because it certainly is possible. But just don't count on it. And just blood work's going to determine everybody, for you. Don't worry about me or the next guy or the next guy or the next guy. It's all about you. How does your body respond? All I can do is give you common doses, things that I've experienced, the general dosing. But look, at the end of the day, it's all about you, not me, not anybody else. We're just here to guide you through the experiences, and like me coaching so many people and seeing the different responses and things of that nature. But ultimately, a good coach is always going to cater to you and you alone. And then, lastly, number 5. It has a very, very, very favorable side effect profile. What does that mean? That means that there's less side effects than you're going to experience with most or any other steroids out there. It's one of the only compounds out there that can be run at more extended periods of times without any kind of severe side effects. That's incredible, considering that we're talking about a DHT-derived steroid here, where generally you would have certain things like your, hair loss, aggression, things like that. It would just be a lot different with any other DHT if you're going over 12 weeks. And for some people, they can't touch them, or they're going to lose hair like this. People that are extremely prone to MPB, male pattern baldness, they can't even go near them. You generally won't notice additional shedding with it whatsoever, nor does it really trigger acne, even with extended runs of it. There are possible androgenic side effects for some people. But even then, you're going to have to be running extremely high doses, and the instances are generally very mild. Look, like I said previously, everybody's different, and some people are still going to get hair loss with this, or still get your normal DHT-type side effects. But for most, it's very mild, and you're not going to experience these kind of things. Proviron is just, to me, it's an amazing compound. I mean, here, for instance, too, oral steroid. This is not C17 alpha alkylated, so it's not like a toxic oral like an Anavar or a Winstrol or a D-Bol, where I tell you do not exceed 6 weeks of this. You can run this for extended periods of times. I don't like to go over 20 weeks tops with Proviron. Generally, I'm more of the let's run it 12 or 14 weeks and take a break, but I've ran it 20 weeks before, nothing on my blood work, no problems. Just with TRT. By itself, nothing else. But everybody's different. Like, I've seen Proviron ran in several post-cycle therapies, no problem with recovery whatsoever. I don't put it in my post-cycle because I only put things that you absolutely need. But if you're running a proper big, full, complete post-cycle, Proviron shouldn't have any negative effect on you at all in your recovery. It shouldn't. I'm not saying that it won't, but it really shouldn't. I've studied this for so many years and ran it myself and coached it and seen so many different blood works. But hey, I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying from what I've seen. So that being said, that is 5 very strong benefits of Proviron. I hope this video helped you out. And, I like to get into things like this, especially with compounds I really like, and kind of get into more detail instead of just basic things that you kind of get from it. But that being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli, signing off.